afternoon. Thanks for having me here today. My name's Scott Goff. I'm the Fire Marshal with Umatilla County Fire District 1. I've been in the fire service now for 36 years, so been doing this for a while. Worked in various parts of the state, and for the last 22 years, I've been back up here in Northeast Oregon. So I was asked to come in and talk today a little bit about winter fire safety. Okay, so first thing that I wanted to kind of look at is what are the leading causes of residential fires in the state of Oregon. You can see intentional fires, intentionally set fires for 2021. We were at about 14% statewide. When we start looking at the others, smoking contributes to a lot of our fire causes. What I've seen here in the Hermiston area in our fire district, more specifically, is folks that are smoking outside of their residence and they're disposing of their smoking materials into plastic containers on the back porch. And then what happens is that catches on fire, it burns up the back wall of the house and goes right up into the attic. The scary part about that is if it's in the middle of the night, your smoke alarms aren't in the attic. They're not outside of your residence, so you may not know that there's a problem until the ceiling or the roof starts to collapse into the structure. So big issue, big concern. I see it multiple times a year, and it shows statewide that we've got kind of a problem with that. Cooking fires are another big one. We see a lot of these throughout the course of the year too. People turn on the stove, turn on the oven. Maybe they store stuff in the oven and forget to take it out before they turn the oven on. They start cooking stuff on the stove top and get distracted by cell phones, or they're tired, or whatever the case may be. Or they start storing stuff on the stove top and the burner inadvertently gets turned on and catches the debris on fire. The photo here, this is actually a kitchen fire that we had here in our fire district. This was done by an individual that was tired. The fire happened about 2 o'clock in the morning. They turned the stove top on to start cooking some food and fell asleep and woke up to the kitchen on fire. Heating is another leading cause in the state of Oregon for fires. We see a lot, especially during the winter months. We see portable electric space heaters. We see heat lamps for animals. So we see a lot of outbuilding fires during this time of the year, with people trying to keep their animals warm, as well as putting electric space heaters in and either putting them too close or something gets knocked over onto that appliance. And then electrical distribution, you can see it's only 2%, but it's something that we see pretty regular as well. The biggest issue with that is when people do their own home repairs and they don't do them correctly. And then we start running into issues there with the electrical system. The photo here, this is another kitchen fire that we had in our fire district a couple of years ago. This is actually an air fryer that they left on the stove top, and the burner on the stove top got turned on. And this is what we had. What was interesting about this was just 2 weeks before this fire happened, I was reading one of our trade magazines for fire investigations, and read just about this exact scenario. And 2 weeks later, I'm standing in somebody's burned out kitchen looking at it. Okay, so it happens, but the storage of combustible materials on the stovetop is just a huge concern. So we want to try to keep that from happening. Another thing is keeping your kitchen clean. Okay, as we cook, we get grease buildup, whatever the case may be. That just potentially adds to what may be available around that area to burn. So if you have a grease fire, first thing is to make sure that you're safe. Okay. If you're able to do that, like in this picture here, the control knobs are on the front of the stove, but a lot of our stoves, the control knobs are on the back side. So if it's safe to do so, turn off the burner so we can start getting rid of that heat source. Okay. Cover that pan with a lid or with a baking sheet or something like that to cut off that oxygen source to the fire and to the fuel that's in that pan. Don't move the pan, especially if you've got a little bit of grease in the bottom of that, because all you got to do is stumble. You're excited. Things are frantic, and you could very easily spill that on yourself and end up becoming injured from the hot grease or the hot whatever that's in the pan. Leave the house and call 911. Okay. Candles, we see we're kind of at the tail end of the holiday season now, but we see a lot of candle use. So just some things to keep in mind is keep anything that's combustible about at least a foot away from an open flame burning candle. Okay, that just creates less of an opportunity or chance that something is going to get knocked over onto that candle and catch fire. If you're leaving, blow the candle out. Okay, we've got so many things going on in our lives that it's very easy to get distracted. Okay, and so the last thing that we want to do is leave any kind of open flame unattended inside of our house. Make sure that they're put on a solid base, especially if you've got pets in the house. Okay. Make sure that it's on something that the dog isn't going to knock over, because then that's just one more opportunity for us to have a fire start inside the residence. And if possible, use flameless candles. Okay. They look pretty decent now compared to some of the early technology for the flameless candles. It doesn't give the same atmosphere as an open flame candle does, but if possible, use the flameless candles. So heating safety, again, we see that a lot this time of year in the fire district. The last couple of fires that I've looked at have had something to do with some sort of a heating component, whether it was welding and cutting, discarded smoking materials, and heating appliances. Okay. One of the big fires that we had up off of Cooney Lane, that was a portable electric space heater in the shop where the fire started, and ended up burning not only their shop but their residence as well. Okay. So again, we want to maintain that 3 feet of space around any kind of a heating appliance, electric space heater or whatever, just so that something doesn't get knocked over. Again, if you've got pets, if you've got kids, just another reason to try and avoid using these electric space heaters. If you're going to use them, we want to see them plugged directly into a wall outlet. Okay. And one of the pictures I've got coming up, we've got multiple extension cords plugged together, and that was actually off of a house fire that we had here in town that was caused by a portable electric space heater. Okay, so anytime we make a connection, we plug an extension cord into the wall. We plug the power strip into the extension cord, and then we plug 10 things into the 6 outlets on the power strip. We create another point of resistance, and that resistance turns into heat. And that heat will start to break down the materials of the cords and those kinds of things, and could lead to another fire ignition. So plug the space heaters directly into an outlet. Don't use a power strip. Don't use an extension cord, because you're just overloading or creating that potential for that resistance heating. Okay. This picture on the left, that was the one that I was talking about. We've got 2 lightweight, ungrounded extension cords plugged into each other. And at the end of this was a portable electric space heater. Okay, all the fire damage was right around the power strip that was plugged into these 2 cords that the electric space heater was plugged into. Having these lightweight cords, ungrounded cords, just creates another potential, another avenue for us to have a fire start. The other thing that I see pretty regularly is you put an appliance, you put a freezer in your garage, okay? And where you put the freezer, there's no electrical outlet nearby. So what do? You go grab the extension cord, okay? So your power cord off your freezer is about 10 feet too short to reach the outlet. And all you have is a 50-foot extension cord to run that 10 feet. So what do you do with the other 40 feet of extension cord? It just gets coiled up and left there, okay? And over a period of time, what happens? We start storing stuff on top of it, okay? Well, that extension cord is designed to be spread out so that that resistance heating is dissipated off of that cord so that we don't have the damage. But when we take that cord and we coil it up, now we've basically created a burner like you have on your stove top in the kitchen, okay? Because that heat isn't able to completely dissipate off of that cord. So now you take that and plug in a large appliance like a freezer, and now you bring in half a beef or a full beef and put it in the freezer, or you get an elk or something and you load your freezer up with unthawed meat, and now you're causing that to work overtime to catch up. And what are you doing with this 40 feet of power cord that's laying there coiled up underneath the box? You're just creating that heater, and you've just increased the chances of having a fire start. The power strip on the right, that was actually a fire that we had in our lieutenant's office at our main station here in town. Okay, it wasn't overloaded. At least that's what I was told. So this happened before I came to work full time at the fire district. But that was underneath the desk in the lieutenant's office at the fire station. Okay, so it just had a computer plugged into it. And again, these things are all subject to failure. And we need to look at these devices, and if we start to see discoloration, okay, that's an indication that that thing's heating up. It needs to get replaced. If you don't, again, that's just another opportunity for that heat that's surrounded by plastic to become ignited. Have a safety plan, an evacuation plan at your house. Okay, plan that route. How are you going to get out of the bedroom? What's your second way out of the bedroom? Okay, I talk to little kids all the time, and it's always fun because they get focused in on the window when we're talking about exiting the house. And I ask them, what's the easiest way to get in and out of your house? Through the door, not through the window. Okay. But what are you going to do if that doorway or the hallway outside of that door is obstructed by smoke or by fire or whatever the case may be? Your second route out is through the window. The other thing is to have a meeting place established outside. Okay. We especially like to have the little kids go to that meeting place because as a parent, if you get out there and your kids aren't there, what are you going to be doing? It's going to be a huge panic. Okay. And parents can start to do crazy things like go back in the house. Okay. So that's why we tell the kids, go to the meeting place. Don't go to the neighbor's house. Don't go to your friend's house. Go to the meeting place so mom and dad know where you're at. And that's just important for us as adults to go to that spot and make sure that everybody's accounted for, because that can drastically change our operations as our first crews start arriving on scene at a house fire for either setting up to extinguish the fire, or do we need to be working on a potential rescue issue? Okay, so important stuff there. Smoke alarm. You should be checking your smoke alarms monthly. If you look at the owner's manuals for most of those, that's the recommendation. If you've got, we shouldn't be seeing too many battery operated, 9-volt battery operated smoke alarms out there anymore. Most of those should be starting to phase out because of their age. So if you've got the 10-year battery smoke alarms, just doing that monthly check and then keeping tabs, because at the 10-year mark, that's the recommended time to replace those smoke alarms. Okay. If they're hardwired, then they probably have a battery backup. And so those batteries are going to need to be replaced periodically. Again, we recommend about once a year, unless you want to run it out and wait till the thing starts chirping at you at 2 o'clock in the morning and then realize that, hey, I probably need to go buy some batteries and replace those. All the smoke alarms should have a manufacture date on them. So you can look for that manufacture date. And again, the recommended replacement time is 10 years. If you've got smoke alarms that cause nuisance alarms, okay? So you've got the smoke alarm in the hallway. And every time the kid takes a shower, they open the hallway door, smoke alarm goes off, okay? That's going to create a nuisance. And what are you likely to do over a period of time? Listening to that thing go off every night. Okay? Pulling the battery, unplugging it, whatever the case may be. So if that's the case, look at relocating that smoke alarm versus completely removing it. Same thing with smoke alarms that are near the kitchen area. Okay. If they're going off every time you make some toast, probably needs to be relocated. Okay. Unfortunately, one of the sad stories that we had here a couple of years ago, we went out, we installed smoke alarms in a guy's house, and 2 months later, house burns down and he's still inside. When we go in and do the investigation, we find one of the smoke alarms, and guess what? No battery in it, because he'd already removed the batteries. Okay. So just another thing, if it's creating nuisance alarms, relocate it, don't defeat it. We recommend smoke alarms in every sleeping room in the house and in the areas outside of every sleeping room. Okay. And then on every level. So they don't go in attic spaces. They don't go in crawl spaces because they're not designed to be exposed to the elements like that. Because even high humidity can activate smoke alarms. Okay. And so we see that a lot of times, in the summertime, you're sleeping with the bedroom window open, you get kind of a storm front come through or something, and we get a rapid rise in the humidity, and we'll start getting calls for smoke alarms going off. Okay. And a lot of times that's all it could be, is just a high humidity situation that activated that smoke alarm. Make sure that you can hear them in all areas of the house. Okay. And we entered into an agreement a couple of years ago with the American Red Cross. So we even have access now to the bed shaker smoke alarms. So if we've got somebody that's hearing impaired, we have that ability to get those and install those as well for the hearing impaired. Carbon monoxide alarms, again, another important thing. Another device that's been mandated in new construction. We recommend it in existing construction. And most of you that work in the healthcare field, you kind of understand a high level of CO over a short period of time or a low level of CO over a long period of time can have the exact same effects on a person as far as causing CO poisoning. So we want to be able to try to monitor that. And we get CO produced off of any of our appliances that burn fuel. So if you've got natural gas furnace, natural gas heating in your kitchen, water heater, clothes dryer, whatever the case may be, you've got CO being produced. Okay. So it's important to have these detectors so that you can monitor that. If it gets to a high enough level that creates a hazard, then you're made aware of that a lot sooner, so you can take action and not just end up showing up at the ER. We just had that a month or two ago where we had some employees that showed up here at the ER with CO poisoning. There were contractors that were working on the Marshalls and the Famous Footwear. Okay. We get a phone call from the ER staff, says, hey, we got 2 people here with CO poisoning. They're working over here. You guys might want to go over and take a look. Our guys went over there, and sure enough, they were running a generator inside the building. They had one door open, and there was probably 10 more people, 12 more people working inside of the building at that time. So CO, it's odorless, it's colorless, we don't see it, and it's one of those potential things that can bite you real quick. Portable fire extinguishers. There's different types of fire extinguishers for the different types of fires that we're going to see. Most of what you're going to have here in the facility are going to be the ABC fire extinguishers for ordinary combustibles like paper and wood. flammable and combustible liquids and gases. So some of your solvents and stuff that you might see in the lab areas, maintenance. And then C-rated fires, which is energized electrical. Okay. So those extinguishers are safe to shoot off on an appliance that's failing and creating fire-like conditions. K-rated extinguishers, okay, for kitchen. So the kitchen staff are going to have these K-rated extinguishers in that area. And that's for the cooking oils that are in the deep fat fryers. If they're doing any cooking in a wok, anything where we've got more than about 1/4 of an inch of cooking oil, we should have a K-rated extinguisher. So different areas of the hospital may have some different things. In your server room, you've got halogenated extinguishers that are designed to be shut off on electrical equipment, but also don't leave a residue. They don't have to clean up the dry powder wood. Using the extinguishers, we use the acronym PASS for pull, aim, squeeze, and sweep. So that's pulling the pin, aiming the nozzle or the hose, squeezing the handle, and then sweeping that nozzle back and forth to push that fire away and extinguish the fire. I know during some of your in-service training we've been in, and we've done some fire extinguisher training here in the past. COVID kind of shut that down for a little bit, but I'm hopeful here in the next year or so we can kind of get back to doing some of that kind of training. Winter driving, okay? How many of you had slick roads coming into work this morning? Okay, so when we start doing that, we need to recognize those conditions when they're present. We need to know what our capabilities are as a driver, and we kind of need to know how our vehicle is going to respond on slick roads, on wet roads, okay? We want to make sure that we've got good wiper blades so that we're cleaning that window off, okay? Even driving down the freeway, you get the salt or the ice melt on the windshield, and it just kind of smears the windshield. So making sure that you've got good window washer fluid that's rated for freezing temperatures. Make sure that you got half a tank of fuel, at least, okay? Because you never know when you're going to get stuck in traffic. My grandparents, they used to come over the hill from La Grande to the casino all the time. My granddad would drive 20 miles out of his way to save 2 cents a gallon on gas. And more than once, they got caught behind a wreck on Cabbage Hill with very little fuel in their tank. So you may have to run that vehicle for a while to keep yourself warm. Most of our cars now have safety features, so making sure that those outside sensors and cameras are kind of cleaned off from the road grind, just from the normal driving down the road. Remove the ice and snow from your vehicle, okay? You leave the snow on the hood, you start driving, and what that's going to do is it's going to blow up onto your warm windshield, it's going to melt and freeze, okay? So we want to try to cut down on that. And then the other thing is it could become a hazard to other vehicles traveling behind you if that ice or that snow starts to come off and could obstruct their view as well. Don't make sudden speed changes or sudden turns of the steering wheel, okay? You want everything to be nice and easy. You want to give your vehicle that time to react to the friction or lack thereof on the road surface. Avoid using the cruise control, okay? It's just one more thing that could cause us to drive faster than we should for the conditions, and it increases our reaction time to be able to slow the vehicle down. And increase the following distance, give yourself more room. Use your headlights so that everybody else can see you coming. Foggy mornings like this morning, it's hard to see a vehicle until it's right on top of you. If they don't, especially if they don't have their headlights on. Carry blankets and food with you. So if you do end up in a situation where you got to park for a little while and maybe you don't have as much gas in your tank as you should have, that way you've got something to at least bundle up. Give yourself extra time. Know how to install the tire chains. And if you're going to warm your vehicle up before you get in it, back it out of the garage, because now we're back into the carbon monoxide issues. If you're working outdoors, have an idea what the temperature is. Limit your time outdoors. Know what your physical condition is. If you've got heart issues or respiratory issues or something like that, I mean, that stuff is just going to be exacerbated by the cold weather and by the strenuous activity. Take frequent breaks and dress in layers, okay? So that you can peel off or add to as you need to. Don't wear slick sole or flat bottom shoes. Okay, that just increases the chance of slips, trips, or falls. If you're working outside, try to wear mittens instead of gloves. Keeps our fingers together, helps keep our hands a little bit warmer versus the gloves where our fingers are all separated. Oh, I guess I repeated that. Take frequent breaks. Can't emphasize that enough. I know the signs and symptoms of frostbite or hypothermia and the corrective measures to take for rewarming or seeking further medical attention. So if you have a fire, close the door after you leave. Okay. I don't know how many times I've been interviewing occupants of a house fire, and they say, yeah, we left the front door open, and it was amazing how fast that fire moved. Okay. And it's because that door's left open. There's a path of fresh air, and that fire is going to kind of follow that path of fresh air to the outside of the structure. So close the door, call 911 from the outside, report all the fires, even if you think you got them out. That way we can come in and double check, put another eyeball on it, make sure. Don't ignore alarms, even if you're in a building that they go off in all the time. I know most of the time that I worked for the State Fire Marshal's office, I was a CMS life safety surveyor with the State Fire Marshal's office. Okay, we came in and we did fire drills, and we saw complacency of staff at almost every facility that we did inspections in across the whole state of Oregon. Okay, you need to treat them like it's the real thing. We had kids in the high school where I worked years ago, and we did some training with them, and they were complacent. Fire alarm goes off, they're busting out, headed out the classroom. Well, one day, students came out of one classroom, and here's a poster on the wall on fire, and they all stacked up at the door. They were all just ready to go spend a little time outside. And there was an actual fire right outside their classroom door, and they weren't expecting that. So don't become complacent. I know, especially in healthcare facilities, that stuff happens all the time. Okay, whether it's planned or not, take it seriously. Once you're out, stay out. Don't go back inside, and make sure that somebody notifies the fire department. So, any questions? Well, we went just